welcome to the Saints Week in Review. This week I'm joined by Lewis Fairfax from the University Challenge team and Chris Walker, the Saints deputy editor. First, Chris, we're going to talk about the Sunday Times league tables which came out this week. St Andrews has done really well. Do you want to explain what's...
Well, I think as probably every St Andrews student knows by now, we've finally come third in the Times/Sunday Times University Rankings list, adding to our third place in The Guardian, which came out slightly earlier just before summer. So to have both of the main guides for universities ranking us third in the UK is brilliant, especially on the back of the fact that we came 88th in the world on the QS rankings that came out about a month ago. So that's all the good news for St Andrews all coming at once.
But the competition for places as well is quite ridiculous.
Yeah, fantastic. We've got nearly 15,000 people applying for just under 2,000 places. So the fact we've got one of the highest, the highest application rates versus one of the lowest acceptance rates is brilliant.
But not all of these figures were that encouraging, were they?
No, there were a couple of figures which, whenever you look at them, they seem very, very kind of derogatory towards St Andrews. You've got us coming 124th out of 128th in terms of state school places. Just under 60% of our people, our students here, are from state school background. And then you've got us coming 125th out of 128th in terms of people identified as being in the working class grouping. The vast majority of people coming from the middle class backgrounds there. So a couple of things we need to work on from the face of it. Now, we obviously don't know how the Times and the Sunday Times kind of broke down these figures, what data they're using and where they've got this information from. But on the face of it, certainly, it seems that the university's still got a bit of work to do in those regards.
And do you think that these actually mean anything? Because often they're criticised quite a lot.
In terms of where we've come in placings?
Yeah, the placing.
I think we can probably be fairly certain with the national rankings that we've done fairly well, particularly with the Times, because those ones seem to fluctuate slightly less than the likes of The Guardian, which can be a bit all over the place at times. With regards to world rankings, some people stand by them, some people say they're a load of nonsense, because obviously they're comparing totally different things. They're looking at the number of international students, the number of international members of staff in different faculties. And for us, as such a small university where we don't really work that much on academic research, and we've put more focus into teaching, for us to come at such a high placing in the top 100 is very, very good.
And Lewis, you were on University Challenge this week.
Slightly more disappointing result. There you go.
You lost to Trinity College, Cambridge, who were the defending champion, by 100 points to 150. Do you think you got a tough draw? Do you think you could have gone further?
Well, there's only so far you can blame a tough draw. I think that in the end we didn't embarrass ourselves. We were up against a very hard team, some of the brightest minds in the country, Trinity College, Cambridge. You just had to listen to the names that were read out on the alumni that have gone there. And I'm not making excuses, but I am saying that we had a very tough draw. I mean, we got to Manchester and we were like, well, the train ride was fun, and they told us our opponents. But no, it was fun all the same, and I felt that we certainly didn't embarrass ourselves. We got that magic 3 figures that we were looking for, and yeah, we got on TV, and I think that was half the fun of it.
How did you and your teammates deal with the pressure of knowing hundreds of thousands of people would be watching you?
Well, we tried not to think about it too much, I think was probably the best way of dealing with it. We just sort of went onto the studio. I remember standing out in the corridor, sort of waiting to go on, thinking, what have I got myself into? And then all of a sudden you're sitting down and the theme tune starts playing and you have absolutely no idea why you came here, and everything was just a blur. I can't really remember the filming all that much. I think I zoned out that much that I had my head in the game, as it were. But I can't speak for my other teammates, but I think that it was quite easy to forget that. I think that it was because it felt so distant, because it was filmed back in March. We weren't really thinking about that. We just really wanted to do our best and give a good showing of ourselves, which I feel that we did.
Your decision to wear your gowns proved kind of controversial. #University Challenge trended on Twitter and Jeremy Paxman made a joke about it. Yeah. Do you regret that decision?
Well, of course we don't regret it. I mean, the humour started when we arrived at the studio and Jeremy came over and inquired as to what we were wearing in slightly less polite terms than that. And he sort of made fun of it in his intro. And I think people do like them. I mean, we got a lot of stick on Twitter. I've been talking about this. People seem to presume that because we wore these gowns, which are after all a historic tradition of the university, in the same way that, for example, at Oxford and Cambridge, the sub-fusk dress is a tradition. We got a lot of stick for being elitists, and in fact, 3 of us were from state schools, 3 of us were from Scotland, so I don't think we really did conform to to any kind of stereotype, and I think it was just a nice historical showing. So no, I definitely don't regret wearing it. I did enjoy reading some of the reaction. I certainly enjoyed the Daily Mail's headline, which was "We were robed," which which cracking headline writing was the way I described it.
How can students get involved with the University Challenge team?
Well, unfortunately, my involvement with the team's finished now because you can only participate once, but I believe that soon enough the union will be issuing almost a casting call for people who want to be captains. I think there's a certain selection procedure, and then it goes immediately to a general knowledge quiz, which is on everything. It's 50 questions. It usually takes place in the autumn. And then the captains will eventually pick their team, and then it's a matter of getting through the initial rounds, and of course eventually you might end up in Manchester filming it. But to anyone who is considering going on the University Challenge, I'd say do it. It's a great experience, it's great fun, it gets you recognised, it gets you a reputation, but it also gets you recognised. And it's everything you think it will be. It's exactly like it looks on TV, and I think you don't really have an excuse not to go for it. Really go for it and see if you can represent your university at what is one of the highest levels in the UK.
Lewis, thank you very much for coming on the show.
No problem.
This week, two of St Andrews' most popular establishments have closed. I'm now joined by the Saints Money editor, Josh Pooley, to discuss this. Josh, do you want to explain what's happened to BB's and Bella Italia?
Yeah, I mean, they both shut quite suddenly, actually, so it was quite hard to find out quite what was going on before they were actually shut and the delivery and removal men were coming in. I mean, with Bella Italia, I mean, I think that was the big shock to everyone because it's the bigger of the two, and obviously it's a chain that's renowned around the UK. I went in and actually I managed to catch the men taking everything away, and I asked why it had shut down, and they basically said that the owner had decided not to renew his lease. So the only problem is because they couldn't disclose his personal information, I couldn't get hold of him. I don't know exactly what made him decide not to. But with real estate prices ever going up in St Andrews and things, it might be that the release was too expensive to renew and it wasn't profitable anymore. And it is quite a big plot on the street, so I don't know whether they were turning tables into cash very easily. BB's actually is a little bit more of a sad story from what I can tell, because they had 3 shops, 3 bakeries in Glasgow, Edinburgh and St Andrews. And the Glasgow one shut only a few months ago and didn't last. It was only opened like a year or 2 ago, from what I've heard, so it didn't last very long at all. And the St Andrews one's now decided to shut. And I had to call the Edinburgh store to find out what was really going on. And they said that the owner had decided to focus completely on the Edinburgh store, which indicates really that there's something, they're obviously struggling.
And do you think these stores will be replaced soon?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I've been doing some research recently into the local economy in Fife and St Andrews, and St Andrews is doing really well in terms of retail, because I think I read a statistic this week where there's only 4.74% of St Andrews shops are actually vacant at the moment, whereas the Fife average at the moment is 16%, so 4 times higher. St Andrews is bucking the retail trend, if you will.
Last week we reported on the takeover of the house restaurants by G1. Do you think there's a risk that we're not going to have, we've got a quite reduced variety of shops anyway, do you think there's a risk that we'll lose that in the future?
I mean, I think there's 2 sides to the coin really on this one. I mean, there's from the consumer standpoint and there's from the business standpoint. I mean, from a business standpoint, yeah, I mean, you could be losing some individuality within St Andrews, because you've now got, if you will, a mini monopoly starting with the G1 group, and they have investments outside of St Andrews as well. They're actually based in Glasgow, I believe. And I mean, they obviously could start crowding people out and obviously using economies of scale, because they've got very similar line of businesses in St Andrews that are all really providing food and drink. I mean, the Vic obviously has nighttime activities as well. But I do believe that, like, from the consumer standpoint, it won't change much. The G1 group saw the acquisition of the Glass House, the Grill House and the Doll's House as purely an acquisition. They took it because they were profitable businesses and they were in a position where they could obviously invest in them and buy them out and keep them going. But they're not looking to make any changes to them. So from the consumer, from face value, nothing should be changing, and there'll still be that individuality associated with each restaurant, and people will still be welcomed to the same atmosphere and experience that they're used to. But like I said, from a business standpoint, I mean, people like BB's Bakery and things could be crowded out by the fact that there's other businesses that are undercutting them.
Well, Josh and Chris, thank you very much for coming on the show. On Thursday, there's a new issue of The Saint coming out, so we'll have all the stories from that to discuss. Thank you very much for watching.